Okay, so to start, what do the following pictures all have in common with each other? Okay. Okay, so close. They were all bioengineered, which means that they were altered or made in a lab. And so that leads to what my topic is, which is a little bit more specific, which is biomedical engineering. So the definition I have for biomedical engineering is combining biology, technology, and engineering to alleviate and or fix medical problems. And then the rooted in Christian compassion part is really important to my topic because it dictates how we will approach my subtopics. So my subtopics are tissue engineering and artificial organs, robotics and surgery, AI and medical imaging and cancer detection, targeted drug delivery, ethical concerns and Christian responsibility, and then Christian compassion and personal calling. So, first, because there is a need for organs nationwide, tissue engineering is a productive and promising strategy to address the issues that is costing many people their lives. So, currently, there's about 105,000 people on the transplant list. 17 people die every day while waiting, and about 8 people are added to the list every day. So this is a graph showing specifically like what organs people are waiting on. And so as you can see, kidneys is the highest, which I find interesting because for one, you can live with only one kidney, and also there's living donors where a family member or someone with the same blood type can give you one of your kidneys. And then the others includes face, hands, abdominal wall, eyes, and skin. So this is a quote from one of the books that I've read about a transplant surgeon, and this was the chapter about like transplant surgery. And so it says, "Don't think of organ donation as giving up a part of yourself to keep a total stranger alive. It's really a total stranger giving up almost all of themselves to keep a part of you alive." So I kind of just had this as an encouragement to be an organ donor or at least consider it. So, what is the problem that we're facing? So the lifespan in the United States is currently increasing, which in turn means that there is a need for more healthy organs. As people get older, it is natural for their organs to begin to shut down. So what's the solution? While there are many ways we can prevent organ failure, like having healthy lifestyles, sleeping more, or just taking care of ourselves, people will inevitably still be in a need for an organ. So some current strategies that scientists and doctors are working on is creating biomedically engineered organs that would be viable for transplant into the body. They would create these by using scaffolds and tissues. So the tissues and scaffolds go hand in hand because they cannot produce an organ independently. The scaffolds are created from various biomaterials like collagen or biodegradable plastics and have pores to allow for space and cells to grow and develop, and it acts as a 3D support system or mold. So there are two different types of scaffolds. There's acellular and cellular. So for acellular, it means that there's no cells implanted, which these are largely used when doctors are expecting patients to like produce the right amount of cells. So like for burn victims and stuff, like they kind of expect them to be able to fix themselves. And so the cell seeded are the ones where they load cells into the scaffolds with stem cells or from the patient or from a donor. This is the most common because it's used when a patient can't produce enough cells on their own. So the tissues are then created from the cells growing around the scaffolds, and the tissues are then the finished product is what makes it like hold the scaffold together. So what does the future look like? So the Mayo Clinic is currently working on lab-grown organs to hopefully be transplanted into people in the next 10 to 15 years. And then I have a quote from the Mayo Clinic that says, "One of our many aspirations is to provide organ transplants for everyone who needs one and to eliminate the wait list." So next is robotics and surgery. So what's the problem? So traditional open surgeries are invasive with painful and long recovery times. And then increasing the precision in surgery allows for less trauma, minimal scarring, and reduced complications. While non-invasive techniques are not necessarily a new technology in medicine, it's becoming increasingly utilized in various surgical fields. So what's the solution? There could be many solutions to this problem, but I've chosen to focus on two, namely Da Vinci robot as well as the Mako robot. So for the Da Vinci robot, along with the visual aid that it provides, it also is capable of distinguishing abnormal tissue from normal tissue and evaluate blood flow in real time. NYU Surgery Center utilizes the Da Vinci surgical system every day. The system has two high-definition cameras which provide the surgeon with a magnified view of the surgical site. That is a 40% sharper image than previous systems. And then the Mako robot. This robot is largely used in joint replacement surgery like knees and hips. It assists surgeons in greater precision and accuracy within 1 millimeter of preoperative mapping. It works by using CT scans that create a 3D model of the patient's joint, allowing for surgeons to plan the surgery and guide the robotic arm during the procedure. So what does the future look like? According to Vanderbilt University, the goal is to create robots and robotic systems at a microscopic scale called microbots. These will be smaller, faster, and more efficient than traditional robots, and they'll have a range of applications outside of just surgery. And then current research focuses on smaller robots that can navigate the bloodstream and perform specific tasks, such as removing blood clots or delivering treatment. And so this is a picture of the Da Vinci robot. So the surgeon sits in a chair and has like gaming-like controllers where it controls the actual robotic arms performing the surgery. And for every 1 inch the surgeon moves his hands, the robot moves 1/4 of an inch. And then this is the Mako robot. So the picture on the left is the actual like robotic arm, and then the picture on the right is doing preoperative and AI-assisted scanning done before the surgery, and this is an example of it being done on the knee. And it maps out the bone where it has arthritis and like needs to be like chipped away before the replacement surgery. The Mako robot auto aligns the blade to the bone that follows the map from the CT scan, making the precision during the bone cutting way more accurate. So next we have medical imaging and cancer detection. So what's the problem? So diagnosing cancer from tissue biopsies and scans is time-consuming and complex. Often the cancer is found after it has already progressed into stages that can be difficult to treat. So what's the solution? AI models such as Harvard's Chief, which is a ChatGPT-like large language model. Not only is AI integrated medical imaging promising for patients, but it will also be extremely beneficial for radiologists and doctors who have to read the image. So what's the future outlook? Along with the many benefits that AI is giving patients, it's also helping doctors. By confidently diagnosing cancer sooner, oncologists will be able to treat the cancer before it spreads. According to Harvard Med, the goal in early cancer detection is to be able to intervene and change the trajectory of the disease before it gets worse. The researchers said that they plan to refine Chief's performance and its capabilities by conducting additional training on images of tissues that are rare and also non-cancerous conditions. And they also plan to expose the model to more data to enhance its ability to identify cancers with different aggressiveness. So this is what Chief looks like when it's integrated onto a CT scan. So according to Harvard Med, there are current AI systems used for the prediction of tumors, but they tend to work only in a handful of cancer types, whereas Chief was trained on 15 million unlabeled images chunked into sections of interest. Following the sequence, it was also trained on 60,000 whole slide images of tissues, and it achieved a 94% accuracy in cancer detection. So because of the precision essential in the medical field, the AI images can be precisely marked directly onto the images by the different colors to point out various levels of abnormalities, such as extreme cell density, tissue calcification, and shape distortions. So this is like the same scan, and you can barely see here, but there's a lesion there, and then that's just like the AI Chief model kind of highlighting that and making it like way more obvious of like the density and stuff like that of what's actually going on. So next we have targeted drug delivery. So what's the problem? When it comes to pain relief, we often think of anti-inflammatories, Advil, Tylenol, and in extreme situations, opioids. According to the CDC, nearly 8.6 million Americans 12 years and older were reported misusing prescription opioids in the past year. Not only is the opioid epidemic harming otherwise healthy people, non-targeted treatments like radiation and chemotherapy are destructive to healthy cells and tissues. So, chemotherapy is distributed through the bloodstream, so it does kill the cancer cells, but it also kills healthy cells like while it's trying to help you. And then the same thing with radiation is like if you get radiation on your whole body, it's going to kill the cancer, but it also kills healthy cells. So what's the solution? Targeted drug delivery is the solution, which is defined as a method of delivering medication to a patient in a manner that increases the concentration of the medication to a specific part of the body. An example of this is CyberKnife. So CyberKnife delivers non-invasive radiation with extremely high precision directly to the cancer by use of a robotic arm. What does the future look like for CyberKnife? So current research is exploring the potential of CyberKnife in treating conditions beyond cancer, such as back pain and certain neurological disorders. Researchers are also exploring how AI can be integrated into CyberKnife's imaging and treatment planning software to further improve its accuracy. So that's CyberKnife. It's capable of treating patients while they lie down comfortably without actually coming into contact with them, which it also tracks your natural movements, making it a more comfortable experience for the patient. Also, fun fact, we actually have a CyberKnife system down the street at Gibbs Cancer Center. So next we have ethical concerns and Christian responsibility. So, some of you may assume that the line drawn between flourishing and not, or ethical and unethical, is gray, but I've concluded that it's not, and if you're a Christian, this will most likely make sense to you. So, where's the line needing to be drawn? I think we can figure out this question by asking two other following questions, which are, where do these resources come from, and at what point in the medical technology is the medical technology interfering with God's intended design? So as far as where the resources come from, if given a resource for tissue engineering comes from, for example, an aborted fetus, that would be unethical for Christians to support. It would not positively enhance human flourishing. Not only do I believe that consent is one of the most important things a human is capable of, I think it's essential for the positive development of certain medical advancements. And then as far as at what point is it interfering with God's intended design? So some people say that everything happens for a reason, and prefer a complete hands-off approach, while others may see nothing wrong with anything that I've talked about. So I find myself agreeing with both. I would argue that things in your life do happen for a reason and are a part of God's plan, but I also think that He's the one who's provided us with medical advancements that can positively change someone's life. And as Mr. Satterfield has told us, the cost should always be preferred to the death of a child. But I think this applies to other things in science, namely that the potential positive outcome shouldn't come before the protection of the people. So for Christian responsibility, quoting Mr. Satterfield again, technology becomes a problem when we stop questioning it. I agree with this, and I think that's exactly why it's important for Christians of all people to care. Because if Christians stop caring, then ethical concerns really don't matter. So Christians generally do not approach controversial topics correctly or at all. It's common for Christians and people in general to place themselves on one side of an extreme spectrum or avoid the issue altogether. I think if anyone should, it should be Christians who care about things like this because of how easily it can be destructive rather than beneficial. So I urge you to care, but why? Because technology, especially in medicine, will not wait for you. And if you want to see healing come from medical innovations and done in a way that glorifies God, Christians should have an opinion as well as input on these issues. Christians are called to be good stewards of what we have, and also you or someone in your family may end up needing one of these things that I've talked about. So Christian compassion and personal calling. So the verses that I chose for my biblical integration circle back to my title, which if you don't remember was Innovative Medicine Rooted in Christian Compassion. I believe that all these verses show what it looks like for a Christian to be compassionate, and I think it's one of the most important things a Christian can do to show God's love towards people. So in 1 Peter 4:10, Each of you should use whatever gifts you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. So, this verse is saying that God has glorified us with unique abilities, and we should use those to serve others. I also want to point out that it says various forms. So, whatever you decide to pursue, God can be glorified because He intended for all of us to have different passions and gifts. I believe that biomedical engineering is more than just technological breakthroughs, but it is an extension of the gifts that God has blessed scientists and engineers with. And then 1 John 4:7-8, Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not know God, because God is love. So I feel like it's easy for all of us to just say like we should love others, but in reality it's a sign that you follow God. It's pretty clear in this verse that if you do not love others, then you really don't know God, because God himself is love. So I think my entire project is based on the love for people. People in healthcare have to love others and put others before themselves, because I think biomedical innovations and other is another outlet in which we can love people if done the way that God wants us to. So personal calling. um, so for one, I really just think it's super interesting. Medical technology is fascinating to me. I enjoy reading about different ways science is progressing, and I think that the processes in which we're able to heal people is really interesting. So throughout the whole semester, I found myself procrastinating my other homework just so I could read more articles, watch more YouTube videos, and expose myself to the future of what I'll be working alongside. And so for my purpose, I do believe my purpose is to help people. I have been really fortunate to know that what I've wanted to do with my life, and I've known this since about 7 years old. But I have in quotation marks no, because it has been something that I've really been working on, letting God's will be done in my life and not me trying to like take over everything. I can confidently say that I know my strengths and weaknesses, but I believe that God's plan will align with what I want and what I am passionate about if I ask for His will to be done and keep my eyes on pleasing Him and not the people of the world. I believe that I was given this passion I have for healing and comforting people from God, and I think that nursing is a great outlet in which I can do that.
You're on, yes, would you like to go?
Thank you.
You mentioned the one about using abortion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can they create?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely like harder said than done. Like I would personally just think that they should figure out how to create their own stem cells, and they should like create the resources that they plan to use, or get them from like an adult donor who's willing to like donate stem cells, because you can get them from like your bone marrow. So like you can donate stem cells, but I don't think that like taking them from a fetus would be the answer, even though that is the easiest way, because a fetus is pretty much mostly stem cells in like the very early stages. So, I mean, in my opinion, I think scientists should just figure out how to create stem cells themselves. Yeah, you can. They've done that like a little bit, because they've actually made like miniature livers and like miniature hearts. But in order for them to be like the size that like adults would need them, like they need a lot more. So like just getting like tissue donated from like a donor or from the actual patient themselves is like it's not enough to like really produce a whole organ as of right now. So.
I have some questions. First of all, good job. It's one of those instances where it's not just that we need Christians thinking about these things. We need good thinkers. It's obviously very technically involved. There's a lot of science behind it, a lot of technicalities, and it's funny to me because as complex as the science is, when you start to explain like 30,000-foot view, like okay, so what's the deal with the stem cells? Why aren't we learning to grow our own? Why aren't we taking them from adults? And then it becomes it's just a numbers game, right? Like we just need too many of them. like that's when ethics becomes a really important consideration. Anyways, great job. Here's some questions. One, with robots, like two of the things you talked about was robots and AI, right?
Yeah.
And one of the big concerns in other industries with robots, AI, stuff like that, is that they're taking jobs.
Yeah.
Is there a concern, like in the medical industry, in the healthcare industry, is there a concern that like all the robots you're on, and then like the AI platforms, all that stuff, are there jobs at risk here?
Yeah, so in all of my research, that actually makes sense because, like, even my dad has asked me about that, like, oh, your job's gonna get taken one day. But based off of the research, like, all of it has made it very clear that it's assisting and making the outcomes better with the help of the surgeon. Like, it would still need the surgeon to make, like, rational decisions and stuff like that. But, like, the research has, like, made it very clear that it's, like, it's not doing the job for the surgeon, it's assisting.
And that was actually my next question was like,
Yeah.
hey, if we are eliminating jobs, then my concern is that machines and software, hardware and software is making decisions that I would want my doctor to make.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, that was my next question. And then the other, so the focusing on the artificial stuff, Chief, is it called, the artificial thing that detects cancer? Obviously, early detection is really necessary. So, or really like, the goal here, right?
Yeah.
So, kind of again, a two-part question. One, how early is Chief able to start detecting stuff?
I don't know that exactly, but I mean the picture, like if you look up like chief detection of like cancer, like there's a bunch of different images showing like super early stages and then making like the already progressed stages like even more visible.
Right.
So I mean I would assume that it can notice really small lesions and then it notices like the different densities of tissue, which is like a sign of like a mass forming and stuff like that. So it can see it before it's actually a mass, but I don't know exactly like at what stage.
So, and which the next question then is, I know with cancer treatment, like early detection, early treatment is just the best thing ever. Like the earlier, the better kind of thing. That kind of makes sense. And if AI can detect this stuff super early, I wonder, and maybe you saw something in literature about this. I wonder if like the AI, like along with all the other general scans and checkups that people get on a regular basis, anyways, does this become a part of that? Like, does it become a regular? Typically, MRIs and stuff are not what you're going to the doctor for, but does this become a more normal thing for people to do on a regular basis, so that we can then push it into AI and have it just check for stuff?
Yeah, so I like while doing research, I didn't see that that was happening right now, but I mean, I 100% think that that would be like a really smart decision to like make it more of a normal thing and like if you get a scan, like put it into Chief so you can see if like anything is happening.
I mean, yeah.
Like it makes sense to me, like why someone would do that.
There's so much in cancer research that's it's reactive as opposed to preventive. Because there's so many questions as to what causes it.
Yeah.
We're cutting out dyes and stuff to try to prevent it. But it seems like one of those threshold things where we can move from just reactive to you've got symptoms, oh no, you've got cancer, to hey, if we just go ahead and start scanning this stuff on a regular basis. Yeah. Classmates, y'all got anything for Abigail?
As far as AI goes, I don't think it's for ethical reasons. It is more expensive, but the kind of like payoff you get is like, okay, well, if they catch it sooner, you may have less treatment. Less treatment means less time in the hospital, which would be cheaper than, staying for a long amount of time. So I honestly didn't find anything in the research of like why it's not being integrated right now, like nationwide, and like why it's not such of a big deal. But I definitely like in the near future, I think it's going to be like way more prevalent. And like when we're off like in our 20s and 30s, like I think this is going to be a completely normal thing to see.
I would imagine like any kind of diagnostics stuff, like doctors already work with big databases and stuff when they're punching in symptoms and things like that. They already get suggestions. It seems like this, yeah, it comes on pretty quickly.
Yeah, and all of the research and stuff, like the 94% like accurate, like that's like like really recent. So I imagine that like more companies and more like big name schools like Harvard and stuff like that are all like competing to like be better at this. And so I imagine that once they have like a final of like this is what needs to be used, then it'll be like more widespread.
The cost thing would be really interesting. Was it Finn or somebody? Um, you
Yeah.
gotta make money. The stuff costs things. But anybody else?